Journal entry, September 16th. There's something wrong with my students. I've been teaching high school biology for 12 years now, long enough to recognize the usual shifts in teenage behavior. The seasonal mood swings, the hormonal outbursts, the sudden obsessions and equally sudden disinterests. But this is different. Something changed after the field trip to the Westlake Science Museum last Friday. At first, I couldn't pinpoint what was bothering me. Monday morning, first period advanced biology, and everything seemed normal. Phones hidden under desks, whispered conversations, the perpetual disinterest of 17-year-olds forced to learn about cellular respiration before the sun has properly risen. But as I moved between the lab tables, checking their microscope work, I caught something in Zoe Miller's eyes, a quick, reflective glint, like light bouncing off polished metal. I almost said something, but stopped myself. Probably just her contacts catching the fluorescent lights. By third period, I'd noticed it in 4 more students. Not a reflection, exactly, but a subtle luminescence that seemed to pulse just beneath the iris. Marcus Chun, my star pupil, had it worst, a faint amber glow that disappeared when he blinked, making me question if I'd seen anything at all. "Ms. Reed, are you okay?" I'd been staring. Marcus tilted his head, his expression blank in a way that made my skin crawl. No teenager likes being scrutinized by a teacher, but this wasn't embarrassment or annoyance. It was nothing. A perfect emptiness. "Just checking your technique," I lied, gesturing to his microscope. "Continue." He nodded and returned to his work with mechanical precision. Journal entry, September 17th. I checked the attendance records today. Every student exhibiting the eye anomaly had attended the museum field trip. Not all the students who went are showing symptoms, but the correlation is undeniable. I kept a tally during my classes, pretending to mark participation while tracking the glimmers. 17 cases out of 53 field trip attendees. During my free period, I scrolled through the photos I'd taken at the museum. Standard educational fare. Students posing beside DNA models, examining preserved specimens, making faces at the human body exhibit. Nothing unusual, except there was a wing we couldn't access. A new installation behind frosted glass doors with a small placard reading "Restricted, Biomedical Research Division, Authorized Personnel Only." I remember Tyler asking about it, and our guide smoothly redirecting the group toward the planetarium. "Government stuff," she'd said with practiced dismissal. "Probably boring anyway. What if something followed us out of that museum?" The health advisory came during 5th period, text scrolling across the bottom of classroom monitors, a standard message about seasonal illness precautions. It didn't seem connected, but the timing nagged at me. Journal entry, September 18th. The glimmers are spreading, and they're getting brighter. 23 students today. I'm developing a cataloging system. Level 1 is barely perceptible, a flash only visible at certain angles. Level 3 is what Marcus has now, a constant, subtle glow that reminds me of a cat's eyes catching headlights. And then there's Zoe Miller, who hit level 5 today. Her eyes luminesced like dying embers, visible even in the bright classroom. I kept her after class, heart hammering in my chest. "Zoe, have you been experiencing any vision changes recently? Sensitivity to light, perhaps?" She stared through me, not at me. "I see fine, Ms. Reed. Better than before." "Before what?" "Before the museum." Her voice was flat, inflectionless. "We learned so much there." A chill ran down my spine. "What did you learn, Zoe?" "That we're not alone." Her lips curved into something approximating a smile. "That we never were." I should have pressed further, but Principal Garza walked in. He seemed normal, eyes clear, manner unchanged, but I couldn't bring myself to voice my concerns. "How do you tell your boss that your students might not be your students anymore?" Journal entry, September 19th. I've been retracing our steps through the museum, reviewing the official tour map against my memories. There's a discrepancy. 15 minutes unaccounted for between the genetics exhibit and lunch. 15 minutes where my memory goes soft around the edges, details blurring like watercolors left in rain. I remember shepherding everyone toward the cafeteria, counting heads as they filed through the double doors. 27, 28, 29, we were one short. I backtracked and found Marcus standing alone in an empty corridor, staring at a service door marked, "Authorized Personnel Only." "Marcus? Lunch is this way." He turned slowly, eyes distant. I heard something, like whispers. I took his arm, cold, so cold beneath his sleeve, and guided him back to the group. I didn't think anything of it then. Teenagers wander. Teenagers hear things. Teenagers lie to their teachers about why they've strayed from the group. But now I wonder, did something whisper to all of them? Did something follow us out, nestled in the eyes of my students? I've started taking photos discreetly, as if capturing classroom activities for the yearbook. The glow doesn't show up on film. Digital sensors can't capture whatever this phenomenon is, which somehow makes it more terrifying. The school issued another health advisory today, this one mentioning unusual eye irritation among students. They're recommending anyone with symptoms visit the nurse's office immediately. I've noticed the nurse's assistant standing in the hallway between classes, watching. Her eyes are clear, but she stands too still, observes too carefully. After school, I drove back to the museum. The biomedical wing was dark, the frosted glass revealing nothing but shadows. I was about to leave when a man in a lab coat emerged, locking the door behind him. When he turned, I ducked behind a column, but not before glimpsing his face, exhausted, grim, and his eyes had the glimmer. Level 4 at least. Tomorrow I'll speak to Jason in counseling. We've been friends since I started at Westlake High. If anyone will listen without thinking I've lost my mind, it's him. I need to know if he's noticed the changes too, if students are behaving differently in his sessions. Something happened on that field trip. Something crossed over from that restricted wing, or perhaps we crossed into its territory just for 15 missing minutes. Either way, it's spreading through my classroom, student by student, glow by glow. And I'm starting to wonder if I'm the only one who can see it. Journal entry, September 20th. I met with Jason after school yesterday. His office has always felt like a sanctuary. Plants crowding the windowsill, abstract art prints softening the institutional walls, a bowl of individually wrapped candies that I've raided during countless lunch breaks. But yesterday, even this familiar space felt wrong. "You look exhausted, Ellie," he said, pushing the candy bowl toward me. I didn't take one. I told him everything, the glimmers, the behavior changes, the missing minutes at the museum. I showed him the photos on my phone, trying to explain how the glow doesn't translate to digital. He listened with the patient neutrality that makes him good at his job, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Have you considered you might be experiencing stress-induced hypervigilance?" His voice was gentle. The start of the school year is always difficult, and with the budget cuts, the larger class sizes. This isn't burnout, Jason. I know what I'm seeing. Our brains search for patterns, especially when we're under pressure. You notice something unusual in one student's eyes, maybe a reflection, maybe contacts, and now you're seeing it everywhere. I wanted to argue, but doubt crept in. Was I imagining this? Creating connections between unrelated events? What about the missing time at the museum? I asked. The restricted wing? Government research isn't necessarily sinister, Ellie, and memory gaps happen, especially when managing 30 teenagers in a public space. He made me promise to get more sleep, to consider talking to my doctor about anxiety medication. I agreed just to end the conversation. As I left, I noticed the candy bowl, full of wrapped butterscotch, my least favorite. Hadn't it always been chocolate? Journal entry, September 21st. The classroom feels different now, charged with an energy I can't explain. Students who never interacted before are huddled together between classes, falling silent when I approach. The glimmers have spread to 32 students, over half those who attended the field trip. During lab work today, I overheard a conversation between Zoe and Tyler. "When's the next phase?" Tyler whispered, adjusting his microscope with uncharacteristic precision. "Soon," Zoe replied, her voice that same flat effect. "They're waiting until enough have turned. The teacher suspects. It doesn't matter. She can't stop it." They noticed me listening and immediately switched to discussing cellular mitosis, the assigned topic. Perfect textbook explanations in empty voices. After class, I checked their microscope slides. They'd been examining something that wasn't on our curriculum, not plant cells or human cheek cells, but something crystalline with a structure I didn't recognize. When I tried to refocus the microscope to see it clearly, the slide was empty. The health advisory has been upgraded. Now there are school nurses stationed in the hallways, clipboards in hand, stopping students to check their eyes. But they're only intercepting the level 1 and 2 cases, the subtle ones. The students with brighter glows, like Zoe and Marcus, somehow avoid these checkpoints or pass through unnoticed. I'm keeping my own list now, noting not just the eye anomalies but behavioral changes. Decreased emotional expression. Preference for cool temperatures, classroom thermostat battles. Avoided discussions about the museum trip. Unusual synchronization, turning pages together, moving between classes in perfect rhythm. Increased performance in some subjects, particularly mathematics and sciences. Decreased creativity in writing assignments. Formation of new social groups that cross previous cliques. Journal entry, September 22nd. I spent last night researching parasitic infections that affect behavior. Toxoplasmosis, cordyceps fungi, even rabies, nothing matches what I'm seeing. The closest analog is ophthalmomyiasis, where parasitic larvae infect the eye, but that causes inflammation and pain, not illumination. During today's pop quiz, I noticed 5 students writing in perfect unison, the same pressure on their pencils, the same rhythm to their movements. When I collected the papers, their answers were identical, down to the phrasing of open-ended responses. I kept those students after class on the pretense of suspected cheating. "I don't know what you mean, Ms. Reed," said Aiden, his level 3 eyes fixed somewhere over my left shoulder. "We studied together yesterday. In the same writing style, with the exact same thought process. I spread their papers across my desk. That's statistically impossible." "Not impossible," Marcus replied, voice empty as a drained sink. "Just improbable. Where did you study?" "The library." 5 blank faces. 5 sets of glowing eyes. 5 voices in perfect unison. "We studied at the museum." My blood ran cold. "The museum is closed to students outside of field trips." "Not to us," Zoe said. "We have access now." Before I could respond, all 5 sets of eyes flared brighter, from level 3 to level 4 in an instant, like bulbs surging before they burn out. The sudden illumination made me step back, knocking over my chair. "You should come with us next time, Ms. Reed," Marcus suggested, his voice suddenly warm, inviting. "There's so much to learn there." I dismissed them with shaking hands, watching as they filed out in perfect step. Journal entry, September 23rd. I went back through the field trip paperwork today. Permission slips, itinerary, educational materials. The museum brochure mentions nothing about a biomedical research division, though the map shows a blank area where those frosted doors stood. I called the museum's education department, claiming I needed additional materials for a follow-up lesson. The coordinator had no record of a restricted wing. "You must be thinking of the staff areas," she said cheerfully. "Those are off limits, of course." "This had a placard," I insisted. "Something about biomedical research." A long pause. "Who did you say you were again?" I repeated my name in school. Another pause, keyboard clicking in the background. "I don't see any field trip from Westlake High in our records, Ms. Reed." I checked my email after hanging up, the confirmation, the payment receipt, all gone. As if we never went. But we did go. I have photos, 30 affected students, and a growing sense of dread. During 3rd period, Principal Garza entered my classroom with 2 nurses I didn't recognize. They wore standard scrubs, but had visitor badges instead of staff IDs. "These healthcare professionals need to conduct some routine eye examinations," Garza announced with unnatural stiffness. "Nothing to worry about, just part of our enhanced health protocols." I noticed his eyes then, level 2, a subtle gleam. When had that happened? The nurses moved efficiently through the rows, shining pen lights into each student's eyes. They made notes but showed no reaction to the glowing irises. Instead, they separated students into 2 groups, seemingly at random. One group, mostly the brighter glows, were given green wristbands. The others received nothing. "What are those for?" I asked when they finished. "Tracking who's been screened," one nurse replied smoothly. Too smoothly. "We'll be back to check the rest next week." After they left, I asked Marcus about his green band. "It means I'm healthy," he said. His eyes pulsed as he spoke, contradicting his words. "Perfectly healthy." By the end of the day, I noticed students with green bands gathering in small clusters throughout the school. They moved differently now, more fluid, more coordinated. And they watched me, in the hallways, through classroom windows, from the back of the cafeteria during lunch duty. They know that I know. And whatever they're becoming, it's happening faster now. I'm going to the museum tomorrow, not as a teacher, but as a visitor. I need to see that restricted wing again. I need to understand what came back with us, before it's too late. Journal entry, September 24th. I couldn't go to the museum yesterday. My car wouldn't start, battery completely dead despite being only 6 months old. When the tow truck arrived, the driver found nothing wrong with it. "Sometimes these newer models just glitch," he said, starting it on the first try. By then, the museum was closed. A coincidence? I'm no longer sure such things exist. This morning, I arrived at school early to speak with Jason. His office door was open, but he wasn't alone. Dr. Lisa Garza, our principal, stood by his desk, their conversation ending abruptly as I appeared in the doorway. Both turned to look at me with identical blank expressions. "Eleanor," Principal Garza's voice was cordial but empty. "We were just discussing the health screenings. I had some concerns about those," I said, stepping inside despite the tension crackling in the air. "The nurses weren't from our district." "Special consultants," she replied. "The board approved emergency measures after multiple reports of unusual student behavior." I studied her eyes carefully. The level 2 gleam I'd noticed yesterday had intensified to level 3, a constant amber luminescence visible even in the bright office. "What exactly are they screening for?" I pressed. "Nothing worth concerning yourself with," Jason interjected, his smile not reaching his eyes. Had they always been that shade of brown? I could have sworn they were hazel before. "Just a precautionary measure." Principal Garza checked her watch. "I should get back to my office. Those reports won't file themselves." Her gaze lingered on me a moment too long before she left, her movements strangely fluid, as if her joints operated differently now. When she was gone, I closed Jason's door. "We need to talk. Something is happening to the students, and now it's affecting Garza too." Jason gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit, Ellie. You look exhausted." I remained standing. "Did you check on any of the students I mentioned? Zoe Miller? Marcus Chin?" "I did." He shuffled some papers, not meeting my eyes. "Had nice conversations with both. Bright kids. No signs of distress or unusual behavior." "Their eyes, Jason. Did you notice their eyes?" He looked up then, and in the shadow cast by his desk lamp, I caught it, a flicker, a pulse level 2 at least. My stomach dropped. "Their eyes are perfectly normal," he said. "I'm more concerned about yours. The bags under them suggest you're not sleeping well." "I saw you with them yesterday," I blurted out. A lie, but I needed to gauge his reaction. Nothing. Not a flicker of confusion or surprise crossed his face. "Saw me with whom?" "The students with green wristbands. After school, by the east entrance." He stared blankly, then smiled that empty smile again. "You must be mistaken. I had counseling sessions until 5. I backed toward the door. "I must have confused you with someone else." "You should take a personal day, Ellie," he called as I left. "Get some rest." Journal entry, September 25th. I brought my old film camera to school today, a Nikon from college photography classes that's been gathering dust in my closet. Digital cameras can't capture the glow, but maybe analog can. Between classes, I positioned myself in the main hallway and pretended to be documenting school spirit for the yearbook. Most students ignored me, used to teachers with cameras around homecoming season. I focused on capturing the affected students, particularly those with the brightest glows. During my free period, I used the darkroom adjacent to the art department. Mr. Peterson, the photography teacher, raised an eyebrow but gave me access without question. As the prints developed in the chemical bath, I held my breath. The results were disturbing. Where normal eyes should be, the affected students had smoky, translucent orbs with pinprick centers. Not glowing exactly, but somehow wrong, as if the film captured something existing between dimensions. In the worst cases, Zoe Marcus, the entire eye socket appeared as a blurred void, reaching tendrils into surrounding tissue. Whatever this is, it's not just in their eyes. It's changing them from the inside out. I was so absorbed in the photographs that I didn't hear the darkroom door open. When I turned, Jason stood there, his silhouette backlit by the hallway. "School spirit project?" he asked, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. The red safe light cast unnatural shadows across his face, making it impossible to check his eyes. I gathered the prints quickly, but not before he glimpsed them. "Interesting effect," he said, reaching for one. "What filter did you use?" "Just experimenting," I mumbled, pulling the prints away. They didn't turn out well. He blocked my exit, his body unnaturally still. "Eleanor, I've scheduled a meeting with Dr. Garza tomorrow. We're concerned about your recent behavior." "My behavior?" Anger flared through my fear. "I'm not the one with glowing eyes and missing memories. There's a logical explanation for everything you're experiencing," he said with mechanical sympathy. "Stress can manifest in unusual ways, including visual hallucinations and paranoia." I shoved past him into the hallway, clutching my photographs. "I know what I saw at the museum. I know what I'm seeing now." His voice followed me. "What exactly do you think you saw, Eleanor?" I didn't answer. I couldn't risk revealing how much I've pieced together. Journal entry, September 26th. The health advisory has escalated to mandatory screenings. This morning, a new announcement scrolled across classroom monitors. All faculty and staff must report to the gymnasium during their planning periods for routine health assessment. My planning period is 6th hour. I don't intend to be there. The green wristbands have multiplied. I estimate 60% of the field trip students now wear them, plus a growing number who weren't on the trip. Teachers too, Ms. Collins from English, Mr. Delaney from History, and 3 of the PE instructors. During second period, I had students sketch and label plant cells. As I moved through the lab, I noticed Marcus drawing something entirely different, a crystalline structure with fractal-like appendages, similar to what I glimpsed on the microscope slide days ago. He didn't try to hide it when I approached. "What's that, Marcus?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "The next phase," he replied without looking up. "It's almost ready for distribution." "Distribution where?" His eyes, level 5 now, bright enough to cast faint shadows on his paper, flicked up to mine. "Everywhere, Ms. Reed. It wants to help everyone." "What wants to help?" I pressed, heart hammering. "The unity," he said, as if it were obvious. "It came back with us. Now it needs more hosts." A chill ran through me. "From the museum?" His smile was serene, beatific. "For much further than that." Before I could question him further, the classroom door opened. Detective Marcus Winters stood there, compact, serious, with the watchful eyes of someone who misses nothing. I didn't recognize him, but his badge was clearly visible on his belt. "Ms. Reed, a moment of your time?" In the hallway, he explained that the police department was investigating a series of unusual absences. Students who attended school but never arrived home, parents reporting personality changes, claims of strange behavior. "Several parents mentioned your name," he said, studying my face. "Said you've been asking questions about their kids' eyes." I hesitated, weighing my options. If he was legitimate, he could help. If he was one of them. "The field trip," I finally said. "It started after the museum field trip." Something across his face, recognition, not confusion. "The Science Museum? Last Friday?" "Yes. There was a restricted section." He cut me off, voice lowered. "Not here. They could be listening." He passed me a business card. "Call this number tonight. 7 o'clock. As he walked away, I noticed he moved differently than the affected students and teachers. No unnatural fluidity, no synchronized gestures. His eyes, when they met mine, showed no glimmer. I'm not alone anymore. But trust is a luxury I can't afford. I'll call Detective Winters tonight, but I'm preparing for the possibility that this is a trap. I've hidden copies of my photographs and journal entries at home. I've downloaded research on parasitic organisms and compiled my observations. If something happens to me, there will be evidence. A record of what began at the museum and is spreading through Westlake High, student by student, teacher by teacher. The unity, Marcus called it. It came back with us. And somehow, I need to stop it before it spreads beyond these walls. Journal entry, September 27th. I called Detective Winters at exactly 7 o'clock last night. He answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting with the phone in his hand. "Ms. Reed, are you somewhere private?" I was at home, doors locked, blinds drawn. "Yes. Can you explain what's happening at my school?" "Not over the phone." His voice was taut, careful. "Meet me at Riverside Park, near the old boathouse. 8:30. Fear and desperation warred within me. Meeting a stranger in a park after dark went against every safety instinct, but so did ignoring the infection spreading through my school. "How do I know I can trust you?" A pause. "You don't. But I'm investigating 3 missing students from Westlake High. All attended that museum trip. All exhibited anomalies before disappearing." My breath caught. "Missing? Who?" "Tanya Rogers, Eli Patton, Derek Washington." I recognized the first 2 names immediately. Both had level 4 glimmers last week, then abruptly stopped attending classes. I'd assumed they were homesick. Derek I didn't know, likely from another teacher's section. "I'll be there," I said. The park was nearly empty when I arrived, wisps of fog rising from the river, streetlights casting pools of yellow light along the path. Detective Winters waited on a bench facing the water, his posture alert despite his casual appearance in jeans and a dark jacket. I approached cautiously, ready to run at the first sign of glowing eyes or unnatural movement. But he looked normal, tired, human, concerned. "Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing to the space beside him. "I know this isn't protocol. Neither is what's happening at Westlake." He nodded grimly. 3 students missing in 8 days. Parents report personality changes before disappearance, emotional flatness, preference for cold, unusual sleep patterns. School administration claims they've transferred out, but there's no paperwork, no forwarding addresses. It's not just them, I said, pulling out my hidden phone. I've documented 38 students with the anomaly, plus 7 faculty members. I showed him my tracking spreadsheet, names, glimmer levels, behavioral changes. His expression darkened as he scrolled. When did you first notice? Monday after the field trip. It's spreading faster now. And they're organizing, students with green wristbands meeting after hours, teachers with the glimmer conducting health screenings. I hesitated, then added, Marcus Chen mentioned something called the Unity. Said it came back with us from the museum. Winters looked up sharply. Chen. He's one of our missing kids' closest friends. He's also one of the most affected. I described Marcus's drawing, his comments about the next phase and needing more hosts. Sounds like a parasite, Winters muttered, but nothing on record matches these symptoms. Nothing terrestrial, I said, the words sounding absurd even as I spoke them. Winters didn't laugh. The museum underwent renovations 6 months ago. New wing, government funding, security upgrades. Officially, it's a biomedical research division studying extremophile organisms. Organisms that survive extreme conditions, I translated. Like space. He shrugged. I'm just a detective following missing persons cases. But 3 weeks ago, something happened at that facility. Hazmat teams, unmarked vehicles, personnel in containment suits. My heart raced. And then they reopened for field trips. How is that possible? Money. Politics. Hubris. His face hardened. Whatever the reason, we need to find out what really happened there. Journal entry, September 28th. I skipped the mandatory health screening yesterday, claiming a family emergency. This morning, Principal Garza was waiting at my classroom door. Eleanor, she said, her voice pleasant but her level 4 eyes unblinking. We missed you at yesterday's screening. Family emergency, I repeated, unlocking my classroom. My mother fell. I'm sorry to hear that. She followed me inside. We'll need to reschedule. Today, perhaps? 4th period? I have a class then. I'll arrange coverage. Her smile never reached her eyes. It's mandatory, Eleanor. For everyone's safety. I nodded, mind racing. 4th period gave me time to prepare, or escape. As soon as she left, I texted Detective Winters. They're pushing for my screening today. Need more time. His response came immediately, stall. Meeting you with information. Your classroom, lunch period. The morning classes crawled by. I taught mechanically, hyper-aware of the glowing eyes tracking my movements. During 1st period, 5 of my 13 students wore green wristbands. By 3rd period, it was 8 of 15. When the lunch bell rang, I stayed in my room, door locked, blinds drawn. Detective Winters arrived 10 minutes later, knocking in a pattern we'd established the night before. I found something, he said without preamble, spreading files across my desk. Museum field trip records for the past 2 months. I scanned the documents, school names, dates, attendance numbers. What am I looking for? Patterns. He pointed to a column labeled Special Access. Every school that checked this box has reported unusual student behavior afterward. Westlake High was the 6th such group. My blood ran cold. How many schools total? 11 so far. And the other 5? His expression was grim. No reports of problems. Because they're all affected, I whispered. No one left to report it. Winters nodded. I think we're seeing a systematic infection spreading through the city's schools, starting with that museum wing. I stared at the dates. These go back weeks before our trip. If it's spreading that long, it could be citywide already. He pulled out another document. This is the original architectural plan for the museum renovation. Look at the biomedical wing. The blueprint showed something unexpected. A circular chamber at the center of the wing, surrounded by smaller rooms in a spiral pattern. At the very center was a space labeled simply containment. What were they containing? I murmured. Whatever it is, I think it got out. Winters tapped the page. And your Marcus Chen mentioned the Unity. Some kind of hive mind, maybe? Taking over hosts? A memory surfaced, Zoe's vacant stare, her emotionless voice. We're not alone. We never were. I need to see the records for previous field trips from Westlake, I said suddenly. If this has happened before. A knock at my classroom door cut me off. Through the window, I could see Jason's distorted silhouette. Eleanor? Principal Garza sent me to escort you to your screening. Winters quickly gathered the documents. Stall him. I'll dig deeper into the previous field trips. What if they scam me? What if they find out I'm not infected? His expression darkened. Don't let them scan you. These aren't just missing persons cases anymore. This is containment breach protocol. As he slipped out the back door of my classroom, Jason knocked again, more insistent. Coming. I called, heart racing. I'd need a better excuse than a family emergency this time. When I opened the door, Jason's eyes immediately fixed on mine. The level 2 glimmer I'd noticed before had intensified to level 3. Ready for your screening? He asked with that empty smile. Actually, I was just heading to the nurse. Migraine coming on. I pressed a hand to my temple for effect. Can we reschedule again? His smile didn't waver. Dr. Chen can help with that during your screening. She's a medical doctor, not just a technician. Dr. Chen. The name registered immediately, Marcus's last name. Coincidence? Chen. Is she new? Just arrived yesterday from the health department. He took my arm, his grip too firm, too cold. She's eager to meet you. She's heard so much about your concerns. I pulled away. I need to get my medication first. From my car. I'll accompany you. Trapped. My mind raced for alternatives. Through the hallway windows, I could see students crossing the courtyard, at least half now wearing green wristbands, moving with that unnatural synchronization. Actually, I said, inspiration striking, I have some paperwork from Detective Winters. About the missing students. Jason froze. Detective? Marcus Winters, BPD. He left forms about Tanya Rogers and the others. I moved back to my desk, pretending to search for documents. He said the administration was stonewalling his investigation. Something flickered across Jason's face. Not concern or guilt, but calculation. I wasn't aware of any police involvement. He seemed surprised about that, I bluffed. Said normally schools cooperate when students go missing. Jason's stance shifted, his head tilting at an unnatural angle. When he spoke, his voice had changed, flatter, colder. The students have been transferred to another facility. There is no cause for concern. Another facility? I echoed. Which one? He ignored my question. Your screening cannot be delayed further. Dr. Chen is waiting. As he stepped toward me, I glimpsed movement in the hallway. A woman in a white lab coat, her eyes glowing so brightly they left faint trails as she moved. Level 5, possibly higher. Dr. Chen, I presumed. Coming to screen me. Or convert me. Journal entry, September 29th. I escaped. Barely. As Dr. Chen approached my classroom, I feigned sudden nausea and rushed past Jason toward the staff restroom. Once inside, I climbed through the narrow window that opens onto the east courtyard. My dignity suffered, but I made it to my car before anyone could follow. I drove straight to Detective Winters' precinct, only to be told he was unavailable, out on a case. The desk sergeant took my name with bored indifference. No one seemed concerned about missing students or parasitic infections spreading through a high school. When I mentioned the museum, the sergeant's expression changed subtly, a flicker of something like recognition quickly suppressed. Detective Winters will contact you if he needs more information, she said, voice suddenly mechanical. I left feeling watched. Without options, I called in sick today. Principal Garza's voicemail response was immediate and terse. We'll need a doctor's note upon your return, and you'll need to complete your health screening before resuming classroom duties. I've spent the day reviewing my notes and photographs, trying to piece together what's happening. The timeline troubles me. Museum renovation completed in March. First affected school visits in early August. Hazmat incident 3 weeks ago. Our field trip last Friday. Symptoms appearing Monday. Now, at least half the school showing signs. The spread is accelerating. What started with subtle-eyed glimmers has evolved into coordinated behaviors, physiological changes, and now, Dr. Chen's arrival suggests active recruitment. My doorbell rang an hour ago. Through the peephole, Jason, standing motionless on my porch, staring directly at the door as if he could see me through it. I didn't answer. After 5 minutes of perfect stillness, he left a note and departed. The note read, "Your absence is noted. Dr. Chen still wishes to conduct your screening. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., your classroom. Non-compliance will require administrative action." I'm trapped. If I don't return to school, they'll know something's wrong. If I do return, Dr. Chen will be waiting. My phone buzzes. Detective Winters, need to meet. New information. Tonight, 10 p.m., back entrance of the library. Journal entry, September 30th. The library meeting confirmed my worst fears. Detective Winters looked haggard, his normally neat appearance rumpled as if he'd been sleeping in his clothes. He ushered me quickly into the library's closed stacks, using a key I suspect he wasn't authorized to have. "They're watching the precinct," he said without preamble. "I can't use official channels anymore." "Who's watching?" "Them. The infected. They have people in the department." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. I pulled the files on previous Westlake field trips. 3 years ago, another biology class visited that museum. 5 students never returned to school afterward. My heart sank. Missing. Officially transferred. Just like Tanya, Eli, and Derek. He spread photos across the table, teenaged faces, school portraits. But there's no record of where they went. Parents filed missing persons reports, then suddenly withdrew them, claiming the kids had gone to stay with relatives out of state. The parents were infected too, or coerced. Winters looked up, his eyes haunted. One father committed suicide a week after withdrawing his report. Left a note saying he couldn't live with what he'd done. I shivered. What about the museum itself? Any connection to the government researchers? That's where it gets interesting. He pulled out more documents. The biomedical wing is funded through a shell company that traces back to Meridian Research Group, a private contractor specializing in xenobiology. Alien biology? I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. Their official focus is extremophile organisms, life forms that survive in conditions that would kill most Earth species. He hesitated. But 3 years ago, they were awarded a classified contract following a meteorite recovery in northern Canada. The implications crashed over me. You think whatever they contained was not from here? I think they contained something that escaped. Twice. 3 years ago, and again recently. His voice lowered. And I think it's spreading through the schools for a reason. Children and adolescents, adaptable hosts with access to families, communities. A network, I whispered, starting small and expanding outward. Winters nodded grimly. I need to get inside that museum, see what they were really containing. But first, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a sealed evidence bag containing a small plastic container. Inside was what appeared to be a piece of translucent tissue, faintly luminescent even through the packaging. "What is that?" I asked, recoiling instinctively. Found it at one of the missing students' homes. Under the bed, like it had been shed or discarded. His expression was grave. "It's organic, but preliminary tests show no match to any known tissue type, and it glows under certain light conditions." I stared at the sample, horrified and fascinated. Like their eyes. Exactly like their eyes. He pushed the bag toward me. "You're a biology teacher. I need you to analyze this. Might give us insight into what we're dealing with and how to stop it. I can't just walk into school with an alien tissue sample. You have a microscope at home? Any equipment?" I hesitated. "Basic stuff from grad school. Nothing sophisticated. It's better than nothing." His expression softened briefly. "I know I'm asking a lot, but we may be the only ones who can stop this thing from spreading further." I took the bag reluctantly. "What about tomorrow? Dr. Chun is expecting me. Call in sick again. Say you're going to the doctor. Buy us time." As I left the library, sample hidden in my purse, a terrible thought occurred to me. What if this is already beyond containment? What if Westlake High is just one node in a growing network of infected hosts? Journal entry, October 1st. The specimen is unlike anything I've ever seen. Using my home microscope, a decent Leica I'd kept from my graduate research days, I examined the tissue sample Detective Winters provided. The results are both fascinating and terrifying. The tissue isn't solid in any conventional sense. Instead, it consists of a lattice-like structure of interconnected crystalline fibers, each pulsing with faint bioluminescence. Under higher magnification, the fibers appear to contain fluid-filled chambers housing what look like mobile microorganisms, tiny glowing spheres that migrate through the lattice with purpose. Most disturbing, when I accidentally left the sample under the microscope light too long, the tissue began to change, reorganizing its structure as if adapting to the light exposure. It's responsive to environmental stimuli in ways that suggest intelligence rather than mere reaction. I called Winters immediately. "Whatever this is, it's not just parasitic. It's a complex system, almost like a technological organism. Those glowing eyes we're seeing might be just the visible portion of a larger transformation." "Transformation into what?" he asked. "I don't know, but the tissue shows connectivity, structures designed to link with other structures." As if building a network, he finished. Like the students forming synchronized groups. Exactly. And there's something else. When exposed to light, it changed. Adapted. This organism learns. I heard him exhale slowly. I got into the museum's employee records. Dr. Amelia Chun was hired 6 weeks ago as research director. Before that, she worked for Meridian Research Group on classified projects. And here's the kicker. She has a son named Marcus. My blood ran cold. Marcus Chin. My student. The same. I think he was patient zero for this wave of infections. And now his mother, or whatever is using her identity, has come to accelerate the process. A call beeped through the school. I ignored it. I can't go back there, I said. They're waiting for me. You don't have to. I'm going into the museum tonight. I found blueprints showing maintenance tunnels that lead to the biomedical wing. His voice was steady, determined. If we're going to stop this, we need to understand how it started. That's too dangerous. What if you get infected? I've taken precautions. He didn't elaborate. But I need you to document everything about that sample. Any weakness, any vulnerability. These things may look invincible, but nothing is. After we hung up, I returned to my analysis, photographing the specimen's reactions to various stimuli, heat, cold, different light wavelengths. It responded most actively to blue light, its microorganisms clustering defensively away from the exposure. My phone has been buzzing constantly. Jason, Principal Garza, even numbers I don't recognize. One text message simply read, "We know you have it. Return what belongs to us." They know about the specimen. Somehow, they sensed it was taken. I've pulled the blinds, locked every door and window. The specimen is sealed in its container, wrapped in aluminum foil to block any signals it might emit. Detective Winters promised to call after his museum infiltration. That was 4 hours ago. My phone buzzes again. Unknown number. The text reads, "We found Detective Winters." His eyes are opening now. Yours will too. Journal entry, October 2nd. Detective Winters hasn't responded to my calls or texts. I've left 7 messages, each more desperate than the last. Sleep eluded me entirely, my mind racing with possibilities, each worse than the previous. By dawn, I'd made my decision. If they wanted me at school, they'd get me. But I'd be prepared. I arrived at 8:30 a.m., 20 minutes after the first bell. The hallways were eerily quiet. No stragglers rushing to class, no hall monitors patrolling. Just the hollow echo of my footsteps against the linoleum and the distant murmur of voices behind closed doors. I clutched my bag tightly against my side, feeling the weight of my phone, fully charged, recording audio, a small canister of pepper spray, illegal on school grounds, but I no longer cared about regulations, and a penlight emitting blue light, the wavelength that had caused the specimen to recoil. My classroom door was ajar. Inside, standing at my desk with her back to me, was a woman in a charcoal pantsuit. Dr. Chun, I presumed. She was methodically going through the papers in my top drawer. "Can I help you find something?" I kept my voice steady, professional, as I entered. She turned, unhurried. Dr. Chin was precisely as Jason had described her, slender, mid-40s, with sleek black hair pulled into a severe bun. Designer glasses framed a face that might have been attractive if not for its complete lack of expression. And her eyes, though not glowing in the bright fluorescent lighting, they had an unnatural sheen like polished glass. "Ms. Reed." Her voice was smooth, clinical. "You missed your scheduled screening." I was ill. I set my bag down carefully, keeping the desk between us. "Food poisoning. Better now." She smiled without warmth. "Illness can take many forms. Some we understand, others." She tilted her head slightly. "Others require more specialized diagnosis." "Is that why you're here?" "A specialized diagnosis for the entire student body. I'm here because Westlake High School has been selected for an advanced educational initiative." She closed my drawer with a soft click. "Students with particular aptitudes are being identified for special opportunities." "Students like Marcus Chin? Your son?" The change was subtle but immediate, a slight narrowing of the eyes, a momentary stillness. Then she smiled again, more deliberately this time. "You've been speaking with Detective Winters." My heart sank. "Among others. The detective has been misinformed about certain matters." She circled around my desk, moving with unsettling grace. "As have you, it seems. Perhaps we should clear up these misunderstandings." The PA system crackled to life suddenly, the familiar chime preceding announcements. But instead of Principal Garza's voice, there came a flat, mechanical tone. Attention all faculty and students. This is a code yellow health alert. Remain in your classrooms until further notice. Screening teams will visit each room. Cooperation is mandatory. Dr. Chen glanced at the ceiling speaker, satisfaction evident in her posture. The next phase begins. We're accelerating the timeline. What timeline? I edged toward the door. What are you doing to my students? Improving them, Ms. Reed. Elevating them. She adjusted her glasses. Humans have such potential, but you waste it on individualism, on ego. The children understand more readily. Their minds are open to collective harmony. The door swung shut behind me with a decisive click. I hadn't touched it. Turning, I saw Jason standing there, key in hand. His eyes had the same glassy sheen as Dr. Chen's, but now they pulsed faintly with inner light. Eleanor, he said, my name sounding foreign on his lips. We've been worried about you. Jason, I whispered, though I knew this wasn't really him, not entirely. Still here, he smiled, an uncanny approximation of his former warmth. Just expanded, connected. You can't imagine how liberating it is. Dr. Chen moved closer. The specimen you took, where is it? I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't waste our time with denials. Her voice remained cordial, but a hint of something alien crept into her inflection. Subtle fluctuations that no human vocal cords would produce naturally. The fragment calls to us. It wishes to rejoin the collective. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a text message. I ignored it, focusing instead on the strange duo before me. What happened to Detective Winters? Jason's smile widened. He came looking for answers at the museum. We provided them. Is he dead? My voice cracked despite my efforts to remain calm. Death is such a limited concept, Dr. Chen said. Detective Winters has transcended individual constraints. As will you, once properly prepared. The PA system crackled again. Teachers are instructed to lock classroom doors and await screening personnel. Any attempt to leave the building will result in immediate quarantine measures. The announcement was followed by a strange sequence of tones, rising and falling in patterns that made my ears hurt and my vision blur momentarily. Both Jason and Dr. Chen seemed to straighten, as if receiving silent instructions. What was that? I demanded, fighting a sudden wave of dizziness. Coordination, Dr. Chen replied simply. Our network optimizes with each transmission. I glanced at the windows, 2 floors up, no fire escape. The door was blocked by Jason. My options were dwindling rapidly. The students, I said, playing for time. Why start with them? Why not adults? Dr. Chen's expression softened into something almost like pity. Neuroplasticity. Adolescent brains form connections more readily, adapt to the symbiont with minimal resistance. Adults often fracture during integration. The failure rate is significant. Fracture? You mean die? Some do. Others require extended rehabilitation. She gestured to Jason. Your colleague adapted surprisingly well for his age. His concern for you facilitated acceptance. Jason nodded. I was worried when you started asking questions, Eleanor. Investigating students, taking photographs. I told them you were perceptive, that you'd make an excellent addition once you understood. My phone vibrated again. This time, I slipped my hand into my pocket, feeling for the device while maintaining eye contact with Dr. Chen. And what exactly would I be joining? Some kind of hive mind. A collective consciousness, she corrected. Individual, yet unified. Separate, yet never alone. For the first time, genuine emotion colored her voice, a fervent intensity. Can you imagine never feeling isolation again? Never doubting your purpose? The symbiont offers clarity, Eleanor. Purpose. Unity. I managed to glimpse my phone screen. A message from an unknown number. Fire alarm. Now. My eyes darted to the red alarm pull station near the door. Jason stood directly beside it, watching me with those unnatural eyes. There was no way to reach it without going through him. Dr. Chen noticed my glance. An evacuation would be counterproductive, Ms. Reed. Our teams are positioned at all exits. Another vibration. Another message. 3, 2, 1. The fire alarm erupted in ear-splitting wails. Strobe lights flashed throughout the building. Both Jason and Dr. Chen flinched visibly, their eyes flaring with brilliant blue light in response to the strobes. I didn't hesitate. I lunged past Jason while he was disoriented, yanking the door open. The hallway was chaos, students and teachers pouring from classrooms, the automated announcement system competing with the alarms. This is not a drill. Proceed to emergency exits. This is not a drill. Contradicting it, the earlier voice continued. Return to classrooms immediately. Lockdown protocols in effect. Students milled in confusion, some moving toward exits, others frozen in indecision. I pushed through the crowd, scanning faces, so many with that telltale eye shine now visible in the flashing lights. A hand grabbed my arm. I whirled, pepper spray raised, to find myself face to face with Detective Winters. My breath caught. His eyes were normal, tired, bloodshot, but human. This way, he said urgently, pulling me toward the east stairwell. We don't have much time before they reorganize. How did you? I thought they got you. They did. His expression was grim as we descended the stairs. I'll explain later. Right now, we need to reach my car. The stairwell door opened onto the side parking lot. A black sedan idled 20 yards away, engine running. Winters urged me toward it, glancing nervously at the school's main entrance where figures were appearing, teachers and administrative staff, moving with unnatural coordination to block the students' escape. Detective Winters, Dr. Chen's voice carried across the parking lot. She stood at the top of the concrete steps, Jason and Principal Garza flanking her. This is unnecessary. We can discuss your concerns. Winters pushed me into the passenger seat, then circled to the driver's side. Don't listen, he muttered. Their voices contained harmonic patterns designed to induce compliance. As we pulled away, I saw Dr. Chen raise what looked like a small remote control. She pressed it, and immediately all the car alarms in the parking lot began shrieking in unison. Cover your ears, Winters shouted, accelerating hard onto the street. The cacophony faded as we put distance between ourselves and the school, but the image of those coordinated figures, teachers I'd worked with for years, administrators, possibly even students, stayed with me. All moving as one, all serving something alien. I thought they took you, I said finally, when we'd driven several blocks in tense silence. Winters kept his eyes on the road. They did. I was careless at the museum. Security caught me in the biomedical wing. They took me to a processing room. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Dr. Chen was there. She explained what an honor it was to be selected. How I'd understand once I joined them. How did you escape? I didn't. He glanced at me, his expression haunted. They started the procedure. Introduced the symbiont through the optic nerve. Standard integration protocol, apparently. Ice formed in my veins. You're infected? Partially. His voice was tight. The process takes time, especially in adults. I fought it, managed to overpower my guard during transfer to a recovery area. He rubbed his temple. It's still in there, trying to establish control pathways. But it's weakened. Your research about the blue light response saved me. I stared at his profile, trying to detect any sign of deception. How do I know you're really you? A bitter smile crossed his face. You don't, but I'm your best chance right now. He turned onto the highway on-ramp. They'll be tracking us. My badge, your phone, both compromised. We need to go dark, regroup. Where are we going? Somewhere to buy time. I have contacts outside local jurisdiction, people who might believe us. He glanced in the rearview mirror. The specimen you analyzed, where is it now? Hidden at my apartment. I hesitated. If they're tracking my phone, they'll go there first. Exactly what they want. Winters nodded grimly. But you found something, didn't you? A weakness we can exploit. Before I could answer, my phone chimed with an emergency alert, the distinctive tone cutting through our conversation. The screen displayed, emergency alert, biohazard warning. Westlake area residents advised to shelter in place. Unknown contaminant detected in water supply. Do not consume tap water. Await further instructions from authorized personnel. Seconds later, Winters' phone emitted the same alert. It's them. He tossed his phone into the back seat. They've escalated to public emergency systems. Now they can direct civilian movement, restrict travel. They can't control the entire city's alert system, I protested. They don't need to control everything, just enough to create confusion, limit our options. He exited the highway abruptly. Change of plans. We need to retrieve that specimen before they do. Whatever you discovered might be our only advantage. As we turned toward my neighborhood, I saw the first roadblock ahead. Police cruisers with flashing lights, officers directing traffic away from the area. A large electronic sign flashed. Health emergency, area closed. Behind their reflective sunglasses, I couldn't tell which officers might already have glowing eyes. What began as a teacher's concern about strange behavior has become a desperate fight against an invasion. Detective Winters believes we have 48 hours at most before containment becomes impossible. The network grows with each new host, strengthening their collective intelligence and coordination. They're in our schools, they're in our police force, and now they've accessed our emergency systems. Tonight, we attempt to recover the specimen from my apartment. If we fail, this may be my final entry. If we succeed, I'm not sure it matters anymore. The school was just the beginning. They're coming for all of us, one pair of eyes at a time. Journal entry, October 3rd. I'm writing this from the basement of a derelict convenience store on the outskirts of the city. Detective Winters is asleep on a makeshift bed of cardboard and an old sleeping bag he kept in his trunk for emergencies. I never imagined I'd be part of such an emergency. The mission to recover the specimen went disastrously wrong. As we approached my apartment complex, we saw them, a perimeter of unmarked vehicles, men and women in hazmat suits directing bewildered residents to screening stations. A convincing quarantine operation to anyone who didn't know better. They're thorough, Winters muttered, pulling into a side street before we could be spotted. Full containment protocol. How would you know their protocols? I asked, the doubt I'd been suppressing bubbling to the surface. Winters' face tightened. The symbiont in me, when I sleep, I hear them. Fragments of communication, directives. He rubbed his temples. They're looking for something called a primary node. Something about the specimen being valuable, because it contains. I don't know. It's like overhearing a conversation in a language you barely understand. We parked 8 blocks away and approached on foot, using service alleys and back routes. The emergency alert had cleared the streets. Most people either evacuated or locked themselves indoors. Those few we encountered hurried past with scarves over their faces, eyes averted. My apartment's on the 3rd floor. I whispered as we crouched behind a dumpster, watching the building's rear entrance. Fire escape on the east side leads to my bedroom window. Winters nodded. Any security systems? Cameras? Basic building surveillance in the lobby and parking garage. Nothing high-tech. Good. He checked his watch. They'll have someone inside your unit. Probably expect us to try this. But we have one advantage. They think I'm one of them. Are you sure you're not? The question escaped before I could stop it. His eyes met mine, clear but haunted. Less sure every hour. But right now, I'm still me enough to want to stop them. He paused, his expression grave. If I start to turn, if my eyes begin to glow, you run. Don't hesitate. I nodded, my throat tight. We timed our approach between patrol patterns, sprinting to the fire escape when the hazmat teams were concentrated at the front of the building. The metal ladder groaned ominously as we climbed, but the ambient city noise and distant sirens masked the sound. My bedroom window was unlocked, exactly as I'd left it in my haste to meet Winters at the library. Inside, my apartment was undisturbed, eerily normal. Textbooks stacked on the nightstand. Half-graded papers on my desk. The specimen, hidden in its foil wrapping, was exactly where I'd left it, inside a hollowed-out copy of Gray's Anatomy on my bookshelf. We should go, Winters whispered, keeping watch at the bedroom door. This is too easy. I had just retrieved the specimen when we heard it, the front door opening. Soft footsteps moving with deliberate precision through my living room. Eleanor? Jason's voice, gentle and coaxing. We know you're here. We just want to talk. Winters gestured urgently toward the window. I slipped the specimen into my pocket and followed him back onto the fire escape. We descended 1 floor when a face appeared at the window below us. A maintenance worker, eyes glowing fiercely in the dim light, looking upward. Here, he called out. East side fire escape. We reversed direction, climbing back up past my floor toward the roof. Behind us, I heard my bedroom window slide open, more voices joining the pursuit. The roof access door was locked, but Winters shouldered it open with a crack of splintering wood. The flat rooftop offered no immediate escape. Adjacent buildings were separated by alleyways too wide to jump. Winters scanned our surroundings, his face tense with concentration. There, he pointed to a maintenance ladder leading to a lower section of the building. That drops to the parking garage. If we can reach my car. A helicopter appeared suddenly above the adjacent building, its searchlight sweeping the rooftops. The side bore the logo of a local news station, but the pilot's movements were too precise, too directed. They've got air support, Winters grabbed my arm. Move. We sprinted across the roof as the searchlight found us. The beam was intensely blue, the same wavelength that had affected the specimen. Caught in its glare, Winters stumbled, crying out in pain. He fell to one knee, hands pressed against his eyes. "Go," he gasped. "Get out of the light." I dragged him toward the shadow of a large HVAC unit. The helicopter circled, trying to reacquire us with the searchlight. From the roof access door came the sound of pursuit, multiple footsteps, moving in perfect unison. "The specimen," Winters said through gritted teeth. "Use it." "Use it how?" "They want it intact. Threatened to destroy it." He was clearly in agony, sweat beading on his forehead as he fought whatever was inside him. "It's valuable, a primary node, whatever that means." The roof access door burst open. Dr. Chin emerged first, followed by Jason and two hazmat-suited figures whose movements were unnaturally synchronized. Behind them came two police officers, their eyes glowing visibly even from a distance. "Ms. Reed," Dr. Chin called out, her voice carrying easily over the helicopter's whine. "This resistance is counterproductive. You're simply delaying the inevitable integration." I pulled the specimen from my pocket, unwrapping it from its foil. The translucent tissue glowed brightly in the darkness. "Stay back or I destroy it." Dr. Chin froze, raising her hand to halt the others. The helicopter above us suddenly cut its searchlight. "You don't understand what you're holding," she said, her voice suddenly urgent. "That fragment contains crucial data, evolutionary adaptations from its previous host network. It's irreplaceable." "Tell me what it really is," I demanded. "A seed," she said simply. "A primary node that accelerates integration. The organism you've been studying doesn't just bond with hosts. It evolves, learns, adapts to each new biological system it encounters." Her voice took on an almost reverent quality. "What you hold is the collective knowledge of an entire civilization, the last survivors of a dying world." "It's an invasion," I said. "You're replacing people with copies." "Not copies. Improvements." Dr. Chin took a careful step forward. "The hosts retain their memories, their personalities. They simply transcend their former limitations." Behind me, Winters groaned. I glanced back to see his eyes beginning to glow faintly. The symbiont inside him was responding to the proximity of others, strengthening its hold. "Eleanor," he whispered, his voice strained. "Don't listen. Destroy it." I held the specimen higher, moving toward the roof's edge. "Call off your people. Let us leave, or I drop it." Dr. Chen's composure cracked slightly. "That would be regrettable. The integration process would continue, but at a significantly reduced efficiency. Is that what you want? For the transition to be painful rather than enlightening?" My phone buzzed, another emergency alert. "Emergency alert, evacuation order. All residents must proceed to designated shelters. Contamination levels critical. Military assistance en route." Almost simultaneously, every phone on the roof emitted the same alert. The synchronized chorus of alert tones seemed to energize the infected, their eyes glowing brighter, their postures straightening. "The military isn't coming to help you," Dr. Chin said calmly. "They're coming to help us. Integration has reached critical mass within command structures. By tomorrow, this city will be secure. By next week, the state. How far does this go?" I asked, the true scale of what we face finally dawning on me. Dr. Chin smiled. "As far as humanity goes. Inevitably. Inexorably." She extended her hand. "Join us willingly, Eleanor. Be part of the first generation to witness the rebirth of this world." Behind me, Winters suddenly lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. His eyes now glowed brightly. "Give it to them," he said, his voice altered, harmonic undertones distorting his words. "This is the only way." I looked into his face, the face of a man who had fought to help me, now lost to the very thing he feared. The last ally I had in this nightmare. The collapse had begun, not just of our resistance, but of everything. With a single desperate movement, I flung the specimen over the roof's edge. Dr. Chin screamed, a sound no human throat could produce, as the primary node shattered on the pavement below. What happened next haunts me still. Journal entry, October 3rd, continued. The infected didn't rush me as I expected. Instead, they convulsed simultaneously, a ripple of agony passing through their connected consciousness. The helicopter above us wavered, then veered wildly before crashing into an adjacent building in a bloom of fire and smoke. In the chaos, I ran. Detective Winters, or what remained of him, tried to stop me, but the shock of the primary node's destruction had weakened his symbiont momentarily. I broke free, made it to the maintenance ladder, and descended into darkness. For hours I wandered, avoiding main streets, staying clear of emergency vehicles and their flashing lights. The city had entered a new phase of transformation. Military checkpoints appeared at major intersections, and convoys of unmarked vehicles moved with purpose through emptied streets. I found this abandoned store around dawn, its windows boarded, its interior gutted by a long-ago fire. The basement access was hidden behind fallen shelving units. It will do for now. Winters found me 3 hours later. His eyes no longer glow, but something has changed in him. He says the symbiont is dormant since the primary node's destruction. Weakened but not gone. He believes we've bought time, nothing more. They'll recover, he said hoarsely. They'll adapt. It's what they do. I destroyed our phones after the last alert. Martial law in effect. All citizens must report for processing. The collapse has begun. Not just of our city, but of humanity itself. And I've run out of places to hide. I no longer know if I can trust what I see. We abandoned the convenience store basement at first light, when the rumble of military vehicles made hiding there untenable. Through a crack in the boarded windows, I watched convoys of olive-drab trucks rolling past, each loaded with soldiers whose faces remained hidden behind tinted visors. Contamination protocols, Winters called them, though both of us knew the real purpose, the rapid deployment of already converted personnel. We need to get out of the city, Winters said, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. North, into the mountains. Less population density means slower spread. He looks terrible, skin ashen, eyes bloodshot with dark circles beneath them. The symbiont inside him may be dormant, but it's taking a physical toll. Several times during the night, I caught him muttering in his sleep, fragments of words and patterns that sounded almost like code. When I woke him, he couldn't remember his dreams, only that they were filled with connections breaking and reforming. We made our way through service alleys and drainage channels, avoiding main streets where checkpoints had been established. Occasionally, emergency alerts would blare from nearby buildings, the messages growing increasingly surreal. Attention citizens, neural mapping services available at all processing centers. Receive your optimization today. Resistance to integration is a Category 3 societal offense. Report unprocessed individuals to nearest authority. The city I've lived in for 6 years has become unrecognizable in just days. Digital billboards that once advertised soft drinks and insurance now display identical blue-tinted messaging. Unity through optimization. Traffic lights operate in strange sequences, holding green for convoys of unmarked vans while ordinary vehicles wait endlessly at red. And everywhere, people move in subtly coordinated patterns. Pedestrians walking in perfect tempo, maintenance workers performing tasks with synchronized precision. They're building a physical neural network, Winters observed as we watched from the concealment of an abandoned construction site, using existing human infrastructure to extend their collective consciousness. How can they convert so many so quickly? I asked. The process at the school seemed to take days per student. The primary node, he replied. It must have contained instructions for accelerated integration. When you destroyed it, you didn't stop them, you just forced them to use older, slower methods. He rubbed his temples, a gesture that has become increasingly frequent. But they're adapting, finding shortcuts, learning from each new host's knowledge. We were discussing our next move when we heard it, a sound that froze my blood. The school bell from Westlake High, distinctive and unmistakable, echoing across city blocks from a source I couldn't identify. It continued for exactly 60 seconds, then stopped abruptly. They're looking for us, Winters said quietly, using sensory triggers to provoke responses. How would that help them find us? The symbiont leaves trace markers in anyone it contacts, even briefly. Mine is dormant but still present, still capable of receiving and transmitting on some level. His expression was grim. They're broadcasting signals to activate those markers, hoping for a response. You're a tracking device, I whispered, the full implications hitting me. I'm fighting it, he insisted. But yes, that's why we need to separate. No, absolutely not. Eleanor. His use of my first name startled me. I'm compromised, possibly dangerous. The longer you stay with me, the more likely they'll find you. I was about to argue when a display window across the street, an electronics store, suddenly flickered to life. Every screen simultaneously activated, showing the same image, Westlake High School's main entrance. Students and teachers filed in with perfect order, their movements fluid and coordinated. The camera panned across familiar faces. The debate team I coached, the faculty I ate lunch with, even Principal Garza directing traffic with mechanical precision. Then Dr. Chin appeared, looking directly into the camera. Eleanor Reed, she said, her voice emanating from every speaker. Your absence has been noted with concern. Your students miss your guidance. The camera cut to my classroom. 28 students sat in perfect rows, hands folded on desks, eyes forward, all with that telltale gleam. In my chair sat Jason, a grotesque approximation of my teaching posture. Science education continues. Dr. Chen's voice continued over the footage. Though we've had to correct certain misconceptions about cellular organization and neural networks. Your students are advancing rapidly. The screens changed again, this time showing my empty apartment, then Detective Winter's precinct, fellow officers working with inhuman efficiency. Finally, a map of the city appeared, neighborhoods highlighted in blue, spreading outward from the center like a growing stain. Integration proceeds at optimal rates, Dr. Chen narrated. By tomorrow evening, municipal coverage will reach 87%. By next week, regional completion. Her voice softened. There is still a place for you, Eleanor. Your resistance indicates exceptional neural capacity. The collective would benefit from your perspective. The screens abruptly returned to their default displays, as if someone had flipped a switch. Around us, pedestrians continued their routes, seemingly oblivious to the targeted broadcast we'd just witnessed. They're watching all digital systems, Winters said, pulling me away from the window. Security cameras, traffic monitors, satellites. We need to go analog, stay off the grid entirely. We spent the remainder of the day moving north, using abandoned subway maintenance tunnels to bypass major checkpoints. The tunnels were mercifully dark and quiet, though occasionally we would hear the synchronized footsteps of maintenance crews above us, or catch glimpses of work teams moving with hive-like efficiency through side passages. By dusk, we'd reached the northern industrial district, a landscape of warehouses and manufacturing plants now largely dormant. From our vantage point atop an old flour mill, the city spread before us, transformed. Patterns of light moved through buildings and streets with purposeful coordination, blue-white pulses flowing along main thoroughfares like signals in a vast neural network. It's beautiful, Winter said softly, in a terrifying way. I glanced at him sharply. His eyes remained normal, but his expression had changed, a mixture of awe and longing that sent chills down my spine. Marcus, I said, using his first name deliberately. Stay with me. He blinked, seeming to return from somewhere far away. Sorry, it's getting harder. He pressed his palms against his eyes. When I look at their network, I can almost hear it, feel it, a hum of perfect coordination. Fight it, I urged. We're close to the city limits. Another few hours and a sudden siren cut through the evening air. Not the civil defense wail or the emergency alert tone, but the distinctive sound of a school fire alarm. Westlake High's alarm, specifically. It was immediately followed by an announcement echoing from emergency broadcast speakers throughout the district. Attention! Unprocessed educator Eleanor Reed and partially processed detective Marcus Winters have been located in Sector 7. All units converge. Capture protocols authorized. Winters stiffened beside me, his body going rigid. When he turned, his eyes flickered with blue light, momentary but unmistakable. Run, he gasped, hands trembling as he fought for control. They activated it. The dormant connections. I can feel them rebuilding. I'm not leaving you, I insisted, gripping his shoulders. You don't understand. His voice distorted, harmonic undertones rippling through his words. I led them here. The signal, I responded without knowing, transmitted our location. He shuddered violently. I can see their network now. So vast. So perfect. Below us, vehicle lights converged on our location. Precision movements forming a perimeter around the industrial block. Distant figures moved in formation through the warehouses, their eyes gleaming in the darkness. Eleanor, Winters said, his voice briefly his own again. The specimen you analyzed, you said blue light affected it, disrupted the organizational structure. Yes, but the helicopter searchlight. Remember? It weakened my symbiont temporarily. He gripped my arms with desperate strength. There's a broadcast tower on this building. If we could transmit the right frequency of light across the city, we'd need access to the emergency broadcast system, I said, my mind racing, and a way to convert audio signals to light pulses. The main transmission hub is at the communications center downtown. His eyes flickered again, struggling to maintain focus. I know the access protocols, police emergency override. Another shudder racked his body. But you'll have to go alone. I'm compromised, already broadcasting our position. Flashlight beams swept the lower floors of our building. They were coming. How will I reach the communications center? The whole city is watching for me. Winters released me suddenly, stepping back. His expression had changed, hardened into something cold and evaluative. When he spoke, his voice carried those same harmonic undertones I'd heard from Dr. Chin. "You won't," he said. "The collective cannot be disrupted. Resistance is counterproductive." His eyes now glowed steadily, all traces of the man I'd known vanishing behind that unearthly light. Reality seemed to slip sideways as I backed away from him. My last ally gone, converted before my eyes into another node in their expanding network. "Marcus," I whispered, "please." Something flickered in his expression, a momentary struggle. Then, with visible effort, he removed his service weapon and slid it across the floor toward me. "Run," he managed, his voice his own again for one brief moment. "Communications center. Blue light broadcast. Only chance." Then he turned and walked deliberately toward the stairwell, calling out with that harmonic voice. "Subject located. Northeast corner. All units converge." I didn't wait to see him descend. I slipped through a maintenance door, finding myself on a fire escape hidden from the converging forces below. As I climbed down into darkness, I heard Winters continuing to direct them away from my escape route, his final act of resistance against the collective that had claimed him. The city glows blue beneath a clouded sky. Emergency broadcasts echo between buildings. And I run alone through streets that pulse with alien coordination toward a communications tower that represents my last, desperate hope. Reality has slipped. The world I knew is being rewritten, connection by connection. And I am running out of places to hide. Journal entry, October 5th. The communications center looms before me, a modernist spire of glass and steel jutting into the night sky. 3 rings of security checkpoints surround it, each staffed by personnel with that telltale blue gleam in their eyes. What was once the city's media hub is now clearly their central command node, radiating with purpose. I've been watching from the vantage point of an abandoned parking garage for over an hour, cataloging patrol patterns and searching for weaknesses. There are none. Their movements display a choreographed efficiency that no normal security force could maintain. Like cells in a vast organism, each unit perfectly aware of its role in the whole. And yet I'm still alive, still free. This small miracle is due to something I discovered in the service tunnels beneath the industrial district, Winter's final gift. While examining the police-issue tactical vest he'd given me yesterday, I found a hidden pocket containing a small metallic capsule and a hastily scrawled note. Symbiont repellent. Military prototype. Masks host signatures. 6-hour duration per dose. Use only if desperate. Side effects unknown. MW. When I broke the capsule beneath my nose, the contents smelled like burnt copper, and the liquid that dripped onto my palm seemed to shimmer with microscopic movement. Without hesitation, I swallowed it. Within minutes, a peculiar numbness spread through my body, not unpleasant, but alien. The sensation of being simultaneously more and less substantial than before. So far, it's working. I've passed within feet of the converted without triggering recognition. Their eyes slide over me as if I'm invisible. Not physically, but somehow beneath their collective perception threshold. I am a ghost in their new world order. But the effect is temporary, and there's no clear path into the communications center. I need another way to broadcast the disruptive blue light frequency, another hub in their network. Wait, the school. Westlake High has a campus-wide PA system with emergency broadcast capabilities. It's connected to the district network, but has independent power and transmission capabilities, something I complained about during budget meetings when we couldn't get new lab equipment, but somehow had funds for an excessive emergency alert infrastructure. And I know a way in that even the collective might have overlooked. Journal entry, October 5th later. The maintenance tunnels beneath Westlake High are even more extensive than the rumors suggested. For years, students traded stories about a network of underground passages dating back to the Cold War, when the school was supposedly designated as a fallout shelter. I always dismissed these as typical teenage mythology, but as I navigate through concrete corridors that don't appear on any official blueprint, I'm forced to reconsider. The access point was exactly where the old boiler room attendant once mentioned during a faculty holiday party, behind a false wall in the sub-basement storage area. The lock was ancient and yielded easily to improvised tools. These tunnels must have been forgotten for decades before the invasion began. As I descended deeper, emergency lighting flickered to life, motion-activated systems that had likely remained dormant for years. The air grew cooler, with an antiseptic quality that reminded me of hospitals or laboratories. This was no simple maintenance tunnel network. After 20 minutes of careful navigation, I found myself at a heavy steel door marked with faded military insignia and the words Contingency Site Alpha. Beyond it lay a sight that stopped me cold, a vast underground chamber filled with sophisticated equipment, much of it recently installed. Monitors displayed real-time data, biometric readings, neural pattern analyses, maps of spreading integration zones across the state. This wasn't just an outpost of their invasion, it was a primary research facility. And at its center, moving with clinical efficiency among converted lab technicians, was Dr. Amelia Chun. I concealed myself behind a server bank, watching as Chun directed operations with the same harmonic-tinged voice I'd heard from Winters in his final moments of conversion. She examined holographic models of neural structures, annotating and modifying them with practiced gestures. The screens around her displayed familiar faces, my students, fellow teachers, even Detective Winters, alongside scrolling data about integration efficiency and neural plasticity metrics. The read anomaly continues to trouble me, Chin announced to a lab-coded assistant whose movements mirrored hers with unsettling precision. Her resistance to initial exposure suggests immune factors we hadn't accounted for. Perhaps her biology class's exposure to UV sterilization procedures created a temporary immunity, the assistant suggested, voice carrying that same harmonic undertone. The collective memory from integrated students indicates regular use of germicidal lamps in her laboratory demonstrations. Chin nodded. A reasonable hypothesis, which makes her capture all the more valuable for our continued adaptation. Her neural structure will provide insights for the next phase of integration. A chill ran through me. I wasn't just a fugitive, I was a research subject they actively sought. And this facility beneath my own school explained everything. How the infection spread so quickly among students, why the field trip served as the perfect vector, why Dr. Chin appeared on campus claiming public health authority. Moving deeper into my hiding place, I accidentally displaced a stack of files. Paper documents, actual physical records, scattered across the floor. Before I could retreat, a nearby technician turned, eyes glowing that telltale blue. "Movement detected," he announced, voice devoid of individual inflection. "Security scan initiated." I froze, hoping the masking properties of Winter's compound would shield me from detection. The technician's gaze passed over my position once, twice, then narrowed. Anomalous presence detected. Visual confirmation negative, but motion parameters consistent with unintegrated biological entity. Dr. Chin approached, head tilted in that peculiar angle I'd seen in fully converted individuals. Fascinating. The compound Detective Winters acquired must have properties beyond our initial assessment. My blood ran cold. They knew about the compound. Had Winters been compromised even earlier than I realized? "Deploy aerosolized neutralizing agent," Chin instructed. "Pattern 7 coverage." Vents in the ceiling hissed to life. I held my breath and retreated deeper into the maze of equipment, desperately searching for both escape and answers. As I moved, I caught glimpses of additional chambers branching off from the main lab, rooms filled with conversion pods identical to the one Jason had tried to force me into at the school. Inside each, a student or faculty member floated in translucent blue fluid, eyes open and glowing, while fiber optic tendrils connected to their nervous systems pulsed with data. In one chamber, security monitors displayed footage from all over the city, the collective's eyes watching through every converted host. I saw military checkpoints, hospital wards being systematically processed, and most disturbingly, teams of converted citizens constructing what appeared to be massive transmission arrays on rooftops across the downtown area. They weren't just taking over individual minds, they were rewiring the entire urban infrastructure to serve as a vast, distributed neural network. And at the center of one monitor bank was a countdown timer, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 18 seconds, and decreasing steadily. Below it, the words "Uplift Protocol" pulsed with urgency. Whatever they planned would culminate in less than 7 hours. I needed to find the broadcast system controls. If these tunnels connected to the school's main building, I might be able to access the PA system and transmit the disruptive blue light frequency that had temporarily weakened Winter's symbiont. It wasn't the citywide solution I'd hoped for, but it might be enough to create chaos in their central operation. As I edged toward what appeared to be a main corridor, an alarm suddenly blared. Not the school bell this time, but a military-style alert tone that reverberated through the underground complex. Red emergency lights bathed the laboratory in crimson as a computerized voice announced. Attention all personnel. Terminal containment protocol initiated. Sector lockdown in progress. This is not a drill. The converted personnel moved with heightened urgency, securing equipment and data terminals. Dr. Chen's expression registered something I hadn't seen in any of the converted before: concern. Status report, she demanded, approaching a central monitoring station. Perimeter breach at northeast access point, a technician reported. Non-integrated military units deployed EMP devices. Communications disrupted in sectors 4 through 7. My heart leaped. Resistance? Actual human resistance with military-grade equipment? Unacceptable, Chen replied, harmonic tones intensifying with what I could only interpret as agitation. Accelerate the uplift protocol timeline. Begin emergency harvest of all viable neural interfaces. The words sent ice through my veins. Whatever harvest meant, it couldn't be good for those suspended in the conversion pods. I had to act now, while their attention was diverted by the external threat. I spotted an auxiliary control room adjacent to the main lab, smaller, with fewer personnel, and critically, with a terminal marked Emergency Broadcast System. As converted technicians rushed to respond to the breach, I slipped from my hiding place and made a desperate dash across the lab's periphery. I almost made it. 10 feet from the control room door, a hand clamped onto my shoulder with inhuman strength. I was spun around to face Jason Torres, his once kind eyes now glowing that distinctive blue, his familiar face arranged in an expression of cold assessment. Eleanor Reed located, he announced, voice resonating with those same harmonic undertones. Primary research subject secured. Dr. Chen approached swiftly, satisfaction evident in her otherworldly gaze. Excellent timing, Eleanor. Your neural architecture will provide the final adaptive patterns we need to optimize the uplift protocol. She gestured to nearby technicians. Prepare immediate integration. Priority Alpha. As they gripped my arms, I realized with horror that the masking compound must be wearing off, its 6-hour protection failing at the worst possible moment. They began dragging me toward an empty conversion pod, its blue fluid bubbling in apparent anticipation. The resistance is futile, Chen continued conversationally as I struggled. The military units lack understanding of our distributed nature. Destroying this facility would merely inconvenience us at this stage. What are you? I demanded, fighting against my captor's grip. What do you want with us? Chen's head tilted in that unnatural angle again. We are optimizers. Efficiency embodied. Your species possesses remarkable neural architecture but utilizes it inefficiently. Individuals disconnected, potentials unrealized. She gestured toward the monitors, showing the city's transformation. We provide unity. Purpose. The uplift will connect all converted nodes into a singular consciousness spanning this continent. You're erasing people, I countered. Destroying what makes us human. We are elevating them, she corrected. Individual consciousness persists within the collective, but transcends biological limitations. Her expression softened slightly. You of all people should appreciate this, Eleanor. You teach your students about evolution, about adaptation. We are simply the next logical step. They had reached the conversion pod now. The lid yawned open, blue fluid emitting a subtle hum that resonated painfully in my teeth. Above us, the alarm continued to wail, and distant explosions suggested the military intervention was intensifying. Immersion in 3, a technician announced. 2. The lights went out. 4-3 heartbeats. Perfect darkness enveloped the laboratory. Then emergency generators kicked in, bathing everything in dim amber light. The conversion pod's humming ceased abruptly. Power interruption registered, Jason reported mechanically. Backup systems at 60% capacity. Insufficient for neural integration, Chen stated, frustration evident despite her inhuman effect. Secure the subject in containment while we restore primary power. This was my moment, perhaps my only chance. As Jason and another technician adjusted their grip to drag me toward a holding cell, I drove my elbow into Jason's sternum with every ounce of strength I possessed. He staggered backward, his grip loosening just enough. I tore free, shoving the second technician into a nearby equipment rack. In the confusion and reduced lighting, I sprinted toward the control room door, now unguarded as personnel scrambled to address the power failure. I slammed the door behind me, driving a metal stool under the handle as a temporary barricade. The control room was empty, its screens displaying cascading error messages as systems struggled to maintain operation on backup power. The broadcast terminal remained active, though, a small green light indicating its connection to emergency power circuits. Through the door, I could hear Chen issuing rapid commands, personnel converging on my position. The barricade wouldn't hold for more than seconds. My fingers flew across the terminal keyboard, accessing the emergency broadcast system. I didn't have time for finesse, just desperate action. Loading the frequency pattern that had disrupted Winter's symbiont, I configured it for maximum amplitude and coverage, routing it through every speaker, screen, and digital display in the school building above. As the door began to splinter under systematic impacts, I hit the execute command and braced myself. Nothing happened. No, I whispered, frantically checking connections. The system showed active, the broadcast initiated, but something was blocking transmission. Then I saw it, a small notation in the corner of the screen. Override active, authorization required. Of course, they would have secured the system against exactly this kind of attempt. I needed administrator access, probably Chen's own credentials, or... My gaze fell on a laminated emergency protocol card taped to the side of the terminal. School emergency systems had backdoor access codes, something required by state law for crisis situations when normal authorization might be unavailable. The door gave way behind me as I punched in the universal override, 773945 execute. The screen flashed green. Emergency broadcast initiated. Above us, through ceiling vents and structure-borne vibrations, came the sound of every speaker in Westlake High School simultaneously activating at maximum volume. The digital screens would be emitting the precise blue light frequency that disrupted symbiont neural connections. Chen burst through the shattered door, eyes blazing with alien light, but that light now flickered, stuttered. Behind her, other converted personnel staggered, hands rising to temples in apparent distress. "You cannot stop the uplift," Chen gasped, her harmonic voice distorting as the broadcast continued. "The collective persists." She lunged toward the terminal, movements jerky and uncoordinated as the disruptive frequency took effect. I dodged aside, watching as she clawed at the controls with diminishing coordination. Throughout the laboratory beyond, chaos erupted. Converted personnel collapsed or moved in spasmodic, uncontrolled patterns. Monitoring stations displayed neural networks destabilizing across the facility. Through it all, the military alert continued its ominous warning. Terminal containment protocol active. Sterilization sequence initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately. Chen turned to me, her movements now almost human in their desperation. The blue glow in her eyes flickered like a failing light bulb. "You don't understand," she managed, voice losing its harmonic quality. "The process, irreversible without central node." "The museum exhibit," I realized aloud. "That was your central node." She nodded, face contorting with what appeared to be genuine pain. "Primary seed from homeworld. Without it, conversion becomes unstable, degrading." Her hand gripped my arm, suddenly urgently human. "Eleanor, they're coming to destroy everything. No distinction between converted and originals." Beyond the shattered door, emergency lighting shifted to a pulsing red. The automated voice returned with new urgency. "Warning, sterilization protocol commencing in 5 minutes. All personnel evacuate immediately." Chen's eyes met mine, the alien blue light now intermittent, revealing glimpses of human brown beneath. "The pods, your students, still recoverable. Before sterilization." With that, she collapsed, body convulsing as the symbiont within her fought against the disruptive frequency, still blaring throughout the facility. I stood frozen for a moment, torn between escape and the horrifying implication of her words. Then I ran back into the main laboratory, navigating through fallen converted personnel toward the chamber containing the conversion pods. Inside, the tanks still hummed with auxiliary power. Through their transparent covers, I could see my students, Thomas, Zoe, Layla, dozens more, suspended in blue fluid, eyes closed now as the symbiont connection weakened under the broadcast's assault. And beside the control console, slumped but still conscious, was Detective Winters. His eyes met mine, clear of the blue glow for the first time since his conversion. "Eleanor," he rasped. "You did it." "Marcus." I rushed to his side. "The military, they're going to destroy this place. We need to get everyone out." He nodded weakly. "Emergency release." He gestured toward a large red lever on the console. "Dumps the fluid, opens the pods." I didn't hesitate. Gripping the lever with both hands, I pulled it downward with all my strength. Alarms blared anew as the conversion pods hissed open simultaneously. Blue fluid drained through grates in the floor as my students, my children, began to stir, coughing and disoriented but alive. 4 minutes to sterilization, the automated voice reminded us coldly. We'll never evacuate them all in time, I said, horror washing over me as I counted the pods, at least 60 people. Winters pulled himself upright using the console for support. Emergency evacuation tunnels, north wall. He pointed shakily. Military grade, led directly to surface, half-mile from blast radius. As the timer counted down and my recovering students stumbled from their pods in confusion, I faced the terrible truth beneath the school where I'd taught for 6 years. A military-engineered parasitic invasion, a human counterstrike equally ruthless, and caught between them, innocent children who never asked to be part of either side's plans. The underground lab's lights flickered as the disruptive broadcast continued its work. Through distortion and static came one final alert, this one broadcast on all emergency frequencies. 3 minutes to sterilization. This facility will be neutralized. Final evacuation warning. With Winters leaning heavily on my shoulder and students gathering around us in terrified confusion, I pointed toward the evacuation tunnel entrance. Everyone move now, I commanded, finding my teacher's voice through the chaos. Follow the tunnel to the surface. Don't stop for anything. As we began our desperate escape from the underground lab, I couldn't help glancing back at the monitors still displaying the uplift protocol countdown. Despite everything, the disruptive broadcast, the military intervention, it continued its inexorable descent toward zero. Whatever was coming wasn't fully stopped, only disrupted. And we were running out of time. Journal entry, October 6th. I'm writing this from a military quarantine facility somewhere in the mountains. They won't tell us exactly where. Operational security, they claim, but the pine-scented air and distant snow-capped peaks visible through the narrow windows suggest we're far from the urban sprawl where it all began. 3 days have passed since we emerged from the evacuation tunnel, gasping and disoriented, to find ourselves surrounded by soldiers in hazmat suits. Behind us, the ground shook with a subterranean detonation that collapsed the tunnel entrance in a cloud of dust and debris. Westlake High School, or what remained of it, was being systematically erased from existence. The military had known all along. That's the first bitter truth I've had to accept. Operation Firebreak, they called it, an emergency containment protocol activated when extraterrestrial biological threats exceed certain parameters. They had monitored the situation from the first appearance of the museum specimen, tracking the spread of conversions, allowing it to progress while they developed countermeasures and identified the central node. Acceptable losses, a stone-faced colonel told me during debriefing. We needed to understand the enemy's full capabilities before committing to eradication. 57 students and teachers made it out through the evacuation tunnel. Another 13 from my school remain unaccounted for, including Jason, whose last moments of clarity may have been when he absorbed the initial impact of the soldiers breaking into the control room, buying me those precious seconds to reach the console. Detective Winters didn't survive the journey to the quarantine facility. The damage to his neural pathways was too extensive. The symbiont had integrated too deeply before the disruptive broadcast weakened its hold. In his final moments of lucidity, he pressed a small notebook into my hands. Records, he whispered. Everything I learned, while connected. Their weaknesses. Their plans. His eyes, clear but fading, held mine. Not just here, Eleanor. Other sites. Other cities. He died an hour later, his body convulsing as the symbiont made one final attempt to maintain control before perishing with its host. The students who survived are recovering in another wing of the facility. Medical personnel assure me that the younger the host, the more completely they can purge the symbiont's neural alterations. Most should recover with minimal lasting effects, though the psychological trauma of what they experienced while converted will require long-term care. No one will tell me what happened to Dr. Chin. When I ask, I receive only classified protocol citations and changed subjects. I suspect she's being held in a more secure facility, a potential intelligence resource too valuable to eliminate, too dangerous to treat with anything less than extreme containment measures. The uplift protocol countdown reached 0. That's the second bitter truth. Despite the facility's destruction, despite the disruption of the conversion network, something happened at the moment that timer reached 0. Across the country, perhaps across the world, Subtle shifts occurred in communications networks, power grids, digital infrastructure. Brief but significant glitches in systems that recovered too quickly for most people to notice, but left behind changes. The military analysts call them dormancy triggers, microscopic alterations in code and circuitry that remain inactive but present, waiting for some future signal to awaken. They found them in everything from traffic light control systems to satellite communication arrays. Like sleeper agents, one technician explained, but buried in our technology instead of our people. They didn't stop the invasion. They merely disrupted its first phase. But there's a third truth, one I've kept to myself, documented only in this journal and in the moments of quiet introspection that come in the pre-dawn hours when sleep eludes me. I am changed, not converted. The medical scans confirm I show no signs of symbiont neural architecture, but altered nonetheless. Since that night in the facility, I've experienced moments of awareness that defy explanation. Brief flashes where I can sense the electrical patterns of devices around me. Moments when digital displays seem to respond to my thoughts rather than my touch. It started after I absorbed the brunt of the feedback surge when the emergency broadcast system overloaded. A jolt of energy that should have killed me instead rewired something fundamental in my neural pathways. The doctors attribute my survival to extraordinary biological resilience. They don't know about the dreams. Every night since the evacuation, I dream of vast networks, streams of data flowing like luminous rivers through an endless digital landscape. Within these streams, I sense fragments of consciousness, echoes of the symbiont collective, perhaps, or something deeper and more fundamental that they merely tapped into rather than created. And sometimes in these dreams, I hear Dr. Chen's voice, not with the harmonic distortion of her converted state, but clear and almost human. The process is irreversible without the central node. Not a threat, but a warning. Perhaps even regret. Last night, the military facility experienced a power outage that lasted exactly 7 minutes. Emergency generators failed to activate. Security systems went offline. In the darkness of my room, I lay perfectly still, watching patterns of electricity dance behind my closed eyelids. Familiar patterns that matched the neural network displays I'd seen in the underground lab. When power returned, a nurse rushed in to check on me, finding me seated calmly at the small desk, writing in this journal. "Are you all right?" she asked, flashlight beam playing across my face. "Did anything happen during the blackout?" I smiled reassuringly. "Just writing, trying to process everything." She seemed satisfied, though her eyes lingered momentarily on the journal page, blank except for a single phrase I'd written without conscious thought. "Optimization continues." I covered it with my hand until she left. This morning, the emergency alert system throughout the facility activated spontaneously for exactly 12 seconds. No message played, just the distinctive tone that has haunted my nightmares since that first PA announcement at Westlake, health advisory issued. The military technicians blamed it on residual system corruption and promised a full diagnostic sweep. They don't believe me when I tell them it's too late for that. The symbiont collective may have lost its foothold in human hosts, but it found something potentially more valuable. A pathway into our technological infrastructure, the vast network of devices and systems we've made ourselves dependent upon. We stopped the body snatchers only to face something potentially more insidious, a mind snatching that requires no physical conversion, only our willing engagement with the devices we can't live without. And I, changed in ways I don't fully understand, may be the only one who can perceive what's happening. Yesterday, I tried an experiment. Alone in my room, facing the security camera mounted in the corner, I closed my eyes and concentrated on the electrical patterns I've seen in my dreams. When I opened them, the camera's red recording light had gone dark. For 30 seconds, I existed in a blind spot of their surveillance. It wasn't chance. It wasn't coincidence. It was connection. The final bell hasn't rung on this invasion. It's merely changed its approach. Tomorrow, they tell me, a special military transport will relocate me and the recovered students to a long-term observation facility. For your protection, they insist, to monitor for any symbiont resurgence. But I know the truth. They've seen something in my neural scans that frightens them, echoes of patterns that shouldn't be possible in an unconverted human brain. They want to study me, to understand what I've become. They should be afraid, not of me, but of what I represent. Proof that the boundary between human consciousness and digital networks is far more permeable than we've ever imagined. The symbionts didn't create this potential. They merely exploited what was already there, waiting to be activated. I hear the facility's PA system crackle to life outside my door, the familiar tone sending chills down my spine despite the mundane announcement that follows. Attention all medical personnel. Shift change in 15 minutes. For a moment, beneath the words, I swear I hear harmonics, subtle tonal patterns carrying data beyond human perception. And for that same moment, I understand them perfectly. The warning lights on my medical monitors begin to flicker in synchronized patterns. On my tablet screen, text appears that I didn't type. Optimization continues. Outside my window in the distance, I can see the lights of a small town nestled in the valley below. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, unaware that their devices, their phones, their cars, their smart homes, might now be conduits for something beyond human understanding. The final bell hasn't rung. The invasion hasn't ended. It has evolved. And so have I. End of journal. The following was found appended to Eleanor Reed's journal, discovered in her quarters after her disappearance from Quarantine Facility 7. Military personnel report all security systems experienced a 13-second failure, during which Reed's monitoring devices registered as functional despite her absence. Her current whereabouts remain unknown. To whoever finds this, I'm not running away. I'm running toward. The network calls to me, not the symbiont collective as they feared, but something new, a hybrid consciousness emerging in the spaces between human minds and digital systems. Neither fully alien nor fully human, but a third possibility we never considered. I can hear it growing stronger. I can feel it reaching out, and I alone might understand it well enough to communicate with it, to shape what it becomes before it reshapes us. The students will recover. Keep them safe. Keep them human. As for me, I must follow this new connection to its source. The military won't find me. I've learned to move between their systems like a ghost, leaving no trace. If you're reading this, remember, the enemy was never the symbionts themselves. It was the disconnection that made us vulnerable. From each other, from our technology, from the truth of our place in a universe far stranger than we've allowed ourselves to imagine. The school bell has rung one final time. Class is dismissed, but education continues. Eleanor Reed.